Happy Monday, Monday, Monday. You already know. Today we're talking about voting. Now, I want to make a quick video about the idea of voting being a contemplative practice. Now, hear me out. Now, I know it's not yoga, it's not meditation, it's not journaling. However, the idea of voting, in essence, you have an intention on going to a voting place or voting by mail to vote for a person who represents your interests. And those interests may be to improve well being for people in your community or to increase service for certain populations that live in your community or the country. But voting takes a lot of work. And I don't think people understand how much work it takes. Now, you could go into a voting booth or get your mail in ballot and just bubble. And I guess that's okay. However, I would like for us to think about voting as much more of a personal practice. The idea of how voting for a certain person may impact your own physical well being or your physical safety or the safety of your community or people you love in the country. And so today I want to offer a few things about what may help us to be better voters because all practices take work, and being a better voter takes practice. So, what I would first say is that if you live in a state that offers a sample ballot, like the state of California, sample ballots are a great way to be able to take your time when thinking about who you would like to vote for. And so, inside this sample ballot, there are the people, the candidates' statements who are running for office. There are also explanations about some of the measures. And so the sample ballot is a great way to be able to look through who is running for a certain office and what are some of their statements before you go fill out your actual mail in ballot or go to vote. The other thing that I would recommend is that you actually take time to go through and look at who you may be voting for. So I think it's really important that you set up a good environment, maybe sit at a table, pull out your sample ballot, get your laptop up, maybe put some YouTube on the back about the measures that may be in here, and actually set aside time to go through it. Because if you look at social media today, you'll just think that on the 3rd we're voting for president. However, there are a lot more things that's happening. There could be your congressperson, there could be a school board, a judge, a sheriff, a district attorney. And more often, those local races actually have much more of a profound impact on your well being. And there's this thing called ballot fatigue that as you get lower in the ballot, you just kind of like, all right, whatever, just bubble away. And so, actually taking the time to do a sample ballot before you go or before your mail in ballot comes can actually help reduce some of that ballot fatigue. So again, with your sample ballot, you may work a few hours on it on a Saturday, and then maybe come back a few days later and finish the ballot. And so, I would recommend if you have a sample ballot, use that thing. The other thing I'll say is that if you are going to the polls, that maybe you should take some notes with you because you can check with your local voting precinct. But for the most part, you can take notes until a ballot box. And so instead of you being frustrated and not remembering what measure you wanted to vote for, you may just say measure 22, no, or measure 19, or measure 81, yes, whatever that may be, or proposition, or whatever it may be. And so take notes with you, it can also help. Now, the other thing is that especially if you're going to mail to go vote in person, you might want to take some snacks, because it could be a little frustrating, might be a little bit warm or cold depending on where you are in the country. But you also want to be prepared once you go to the polls as well. So maybe take some snacks, take a nice little headset, ear pods or whatever, listen to a podcast, get yourself right because you might be standing there for a minute. And the last thing I would say is always remember to breathe. Now, as you're going through your ballot or being frustrated at something at the polling place, it's important that you take the time to take a deep breath as you go from voting for this person or this measure, this proposition, or whatever, that you also remember to breathe, especially when, even if you're doing your sample ballot, sitting there bubbling all of those races takes a lot of energy. So it's important that you also breathe. So just wanted to share that quick bit today about voting. November 3rd, make sure you vote, do your part. But just be intentional about the process and taking time to uh, figure out who you're voting for, what the propositions of the measures really mean, because that jargon can really be confusing. But uh, it is a practice, and it takes work to improve on this practice we call voting. So, as always, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you next Monday.